for being here with us, Dean.
Oh yeah. I guess I'm going to have to lead this in.
I think so.
Yeah.
So
You ask me questions.
Puloma and I directed this film. I worked at Other Music when I was 19 to 22 years old, something like that, in 2002. And then when the store closed, we took it upon ourselves to be the official documentarians of the store. I remember Dean coming in as a customer all the time and talking to Josh.
Hi, Rob. Hi, Puloma.
Yeah.
And I was just a kid standing 15 feet away knowing he was this, indie music legend. And still current, still very current artist, great, prolifically amazing solo artist. And
Well, I lived just like 3 blocks away. I lived on Bleecker Street. So
that's why you were there?
A lot. Well, that and because it's the greatest record store in the world.
In the late 90s, early 2000s, I don't think that people really have an idea of how many records were sold out of this store.
Other Music at the time was one of the main sources for hearing about music first.
Holy this one is amazing.
I love the film, and I think when you came over to interview me, I was like, is this for The Onion? Short stuff. But anyway, it winds up being, it's about the store, obviously, but it's also actually kind of about New York City, what happened in New York City, and what happened to the music business as a whole. And so I think, when did you start shooting?
Like literally 6 weeks before they closed, because the day they announced that they were closing, no one knew. Even the people that worked at the store. It was like Josh and Chris knew, and that's it.
Yeah.
And Gerald, I think. And so when they announced it, we found out the same way as everybody else, And we just found ourselves both at the store after work that day.
You're shooting when there's vinyl in the store, and to me, I remember for a long time there was no vinyl.
Yeah, there was
very
some.
little. So it was a late edition. In a way, I feel like looking back at the 90s, it's the compact disc era.
Yes.
It's an era of super profits for the record business like they had never seen before, and will not see again in that same way. And there's some discussion about the compact disc. Mac talks about how it's a great format, and I still like the format.
CDs were great because they don't cost very much to make, they don't cost very much to ship, they can be made very quickly, and all those things are not true about vinyl.
Wasn't cheap to buy in the 90s.
Same price as vinyl, it just for the customer is the same price.
Yeah, I think it was more. At first, it was more than vinyl, and it was like, the whole thing came crashing down. And I think, in a way, the record companies have some responsibility for this thing that cost less than $1 to make, and you were selling them for $17.99. But I spent a lot of money.
And how much of that was going to you, the artist?
Oh yeah, depends on 15% of nothing.
Yeah.
Is the short answer.
Yeah.
So Puloma and I directed this film. It's been 10 years now since Other Music closed. 10 years this summer. And we were just thinking about who is in LA we would want to talk to about the store. And obviously, like, Gary is such a highlight of the film and somebody whose music I know we discovered at Other Music, and Dame also somebody whose music we discovered at Other. He's doing some concert events with the store. Our friend Dwayne, who introduced us, was a big fan of Dame's music, and obviously, like, Stone's Throw and Other Music were very connected. All the Stone's Throw stuff was so popular there. Can you guys just maybe Gary, tell us about how you came to do that in-store?
You're keeping me away, so far away from all the things that I want.
Well, I kind of think of it as it was my insurrection at the time, 2002. Motel Records reissued You Think You Really Know Me at that time, and that kind of changed my life. But anyway, in a good way, everything kind of changed in my life, and one of the things is they brought me back to New York after a long period of time. And Other Music invited me to do an in-store.
It was a big deal. This record, I think, because of Dwayne's word of mouth, was huge here. Like, it was constantly playing and it was selling really well. And so there was an in-store.
I saw Gary last weekend, and I was telling him, you know, when we interviewed the other employees of the store, because I had worked there, we asked everybody, what was your favorite in-store performance? And we didn't suggest anything to anybody, but you know, probably 25% of the people that we asked said Gary Wilson, definitely.
We ended up having to do that animated section just because so many people brought it up. We were like, everyone's telling us this story. Maybe we need to.
I'm sad. I think I started at the store like maybe 3 or 4 months after that, so I missed it. But it was a magical moment for everybody.
Yes, it was. And with Stone's Throw, you know, they released my next album actually, and you know, Peanut Butter Wolf, he's been a good friend of mine, and I'm glad everything turned into good things for me, and Other Music, that was a very moving moment in my life, and it was sad to see it close.
Yeah.
The first couple of years, it was like nowhere I'd ever worked before. It was crazy. Just from the amount of personalities you had to interact with on the staff, and then the amount of people that were coming in the store.
A business partner and a friend of mine named Peter Gostin, who Gary knows as well, he managed a lot of different people, but also booked artists as well. So when I got my deal on Stone's Throw, Peter was suggested to be the person to start doing my booking for my shows. And I had just released a debut album called To Each His Own. It was a 5-record box set. So as Gary was talking about with Stone's Throw, they do a lot of different things. It's very creative and progressive. And so that box set caught on with some of the New York scene and different places around the world. And because it was one of the first like funk-based projects, if you will, that kind of took funk serious instead of like a, you know, disco ball and, you know, rainbow afro type thing, you know what I'm saying? So we kind of took funk serious, and so with taking it serious, Wolf was into releasing a 5-record box set to kind of cover all the things I've been doing in the Los Angeles area recording, and it all culminated into that record called To Each His Own in 2009. So Other Music was one of the first record stores out there that really supported the record and the movement, because Dwayne was very into different styles of music. As you can see, he's into indie rock, funk, reggae, you know, he even does like a lot of disco stuff, but he makes music of his own. But Dwayne was very instrumental in breaking the music for a lot of artists like me, Gary, and others.
Dwayne worked at CMJ.
He was my intern,
He was the intern at CMJ, and so he would review like pretty much anything. Like he could find an angle on every, for like a young kid, that was pretty surprising.
I was just so excited and happy that they had that a store like this existed. So immediately after Lydia told me to apply here, I did.
Here in Los Angeles, there was a record store called Pooh Bah's Records, and that was in Pasadena on Walnut and Green before they moved to Colorado by the Guitar Center. A lot of people don't realize that Pooh Bah's was on Walnut and Green, and Walnut and Wilson, and I always say Green because it runs the same direction. But Pooh Bah had the same spirit as Other, but the West Coast version. So when I was a teenager, me growing up in Pasadena, I would, you know, ride my bike based on my dad being into a lot of different styles of music. Like he'll be into Iron Butterfly all the way to like, you know, the OJs and James Brown, you know, so I would look at his record collection, and I started looking for records when I didn't want to hang out in the hood. I started riding my bike to different places like Eagle Rock and where we're at now, and going to Neil's Records, and all these kinds of places. So my dad used to always take me to Pooh Bah Records, and with that being said, Pooh Bah would have that same spirit, indie, the 12-inch singles from the radio stations, and we would be able to discover rare artists, and that's where I cut my teeth on things like that. And I ended up working there. So before they moved to Colorado, so this documentary got me emotional, just how it has Gary emotional, because it's like it reminded me how we're always into like this digital Instagram-y type vibe, posting, you both calling us here to talk about this and sit here and talk about this documentary, which was the first time I've seen it, by the way, and I heard my music in it. Thanks a lot, but it reminded me I'm going even harder into indie music now. I'm seeing this documentary and sitting here with Gary, my fellow, musician and artist out there who breaks the rules. It's like now I'm realizing it. Like I used to work at a record store like other, and I used to see Depeche Mode 12 inches and traded in by the record labels that are in Burbank, and and all of this stuff in it. And I got so into, after my indie vibe, which I'm still indie now, it's just that I realized that let's go more indie, let's go more art, let's kick the art up again. And I noticed Gary never stopped, and I've never really stopped, but I did start doing things with like cats like Snoop Dogg and different things, more TV appearances. But now this documentary, as I land my plane, it is reminding me to let's go back, hit harder with the art, and do what's inside, and get on back to the art and indie.
Oh.
Yeah.
It means a lot that it made you feel that way.
No, that's the truth. We're closing on the 25th.
When we first announced it, a regular customer told me it was the tweet heard around the world.
So Puloma was saying we found out about the store closing just through the internet, and we went after work that day, and there were people coming in sobbing. There was a TV news crew showing up, and we were just like, okay, well, this is a story happening, and there's a indefinite timeline. It's going to end. So I was like, somebody has to make a film about this store. It's so important to me personally and everybody who worked there, but more so, I worked there when like the Animal Collective guys had just been, one had just been fired.
I mean, Dave got fired. That was maybe that made things a little awkward. His head wasn't in the game at some point.
He was not a great or supervisor.
Noah Panda Bear was working upstairs, and they were blowing up, and everybody would go to their shows, and Interpol were around, and yeahs, and I knew it was just like this. To me, it was like what CBGB's was in the 70s as like a hub of music.
Right.
Other music was that for early 2000s New York, which was obviously something people care a lot about even now.
I don't think I realized that till I saw the film.
Yeah.
Just how many. I mean, I guess I knew about the Animal Collective.
Yeah.
The way things are and the way people consume music is on a certain trajectory, and it does not favor other music.
When's your last day? Let's tell the store's closing.
The 25th.
25th?
Yeah.
Been coming here since I was 11.
Wow.
We just knew it was an important place, and I was like, somebody's got to make a film. I started emailing filmmakers I knew, because I was like, we're not worthy of this store.
He was like haranguing everybody.
Oh, really? Yeah.
He'd run into someone on the street and he'd be like, will you make this movie? And
I
was
also had-
we should just make this movie. Why
I also
don't you-"
was like really leery of making something that was like my story of the record store that I worked in.
Oh, right.
Which we ended up not doing at all. But anyway, like after about 3 or 4 days of emailing other filmmakers, like our friend Matt Wolf, who made Pee-wee as himself, he was like, I'm just too busy. But
And he did the Arthur Russell documentary.
he did the Arthur Russell documentary. I sold him his first Arthur Russell album at Other Music. We were classmates at NYU, and he was like, "You guys should just make the movie." So I was like, "Oh, fine, we'll just do it." So we just started coming every day, and for 6 weeks we took turns. When I had to work, she would go, and when she had to work, I would go.
Right.
And
Well,
we were
no,
there.
my job ended. I was working on a Noah Baumbach movie, and it was
That
just
probably Dean did the music for.
Yeah,
What was that?
it was the Meyerowitz
Oh,
stories.
right.
Yeah, so that was just literally I was on my last week when they made the announcement. So I didn't have to take another job. I was like, I can literally be there every day, all day filming, And then he would come after his job and take the camera from me when I couldn't hold it.
Another funny coincidence was the production accountant on that Noah Baumbach film. Paloma came in wearing another music shirt, or he came in wearing another music shirt?
No, this
What
is
happened?
the weirdest part of this is that I went into the accounting department when I saw the tweet, and I was like, oh my God, Other Music is closing. And everyone else in the place was like, what's Other Music? And Derek looked up at me but didn't say anything. And then later on, 2 weeks later, Josh was like, oh, there was this guy Derek who used to come and film all the in-stores. We didn't even ask him to do it. He took it upon himself. And it ended up being the same Derek that I was working with on the Noah Baumbach movie, but he never said anything. It was really whoa.
So there's a lot of his footage in the movie, and he's got
all
this
the in-store
archive
stuff.
of 50 plus artists playing there.
We would move the racks to the side of the shop, which is already very small, and then a band, often quite a high-profile band or an exciting new band, would play.
Just as an aside, a personal story, Rob and I, right after we met, 3 weeks after we met, we went to Dame Funk's show, and afterwards he asked me to marry him.
I found the ticket stub the other day.
Right
too.
on.
So, I wanted to give you Dame. This is from the store. This was your Dame Funk CD section.
Oh, wow, I got my card.
We found that when we were cleaning out the store, and I've had it in. I was like, we'll see Dame at some point, and it took this long.
I appreciate it.
I also brought with me. So there's a movie about Gary Wilson that is excerpted in our film. It's called "Do You Think You Really Know Me?" The Gary Wilson story. Nice. Actually, the art was designed by the distributor of our movie, Matt Grady. I bought this at Other Music around the time it was closing, actually, and it's a great film. Gary's album, "You Think You Really Know Me," is truly one of the best albums ever made by anyone, and it's a great film. I'm going to donate this to Vidiots so that they'll have it in their video store. So today's record store day, and we're already talking about Pooh-Bah, and I was wondering, Gary, is there a store that meant a lot to you growing up, or did you ever work in a record store?
Well, I worked in a record store when it turned into a music store selling instruments, but I go back when there was Dion and the Belmonts, and Bobby Rydell, and Fabian, and Frankie Avalon, and this was pre-Beatles, and my father would buy me the 45s. He was a professional stand-up bass player. And so I ended up teaching guitar there after high school. But that was my favorite record store. It was called Woody's in Endicott, New York, and they were there when like I say, Dion when I was 8 years old and 9 years old, and that got me into a lot of records, and I had quite a record collection. As a lot of people probably know, I was a big fan of John Cage when I was 13 and 14, and actually so I had a lot of avant-garde classical records at the time. I was playing in the school orchestra and stuff, and that led into composer John Cage invited me to his house when I was 15 years old, and I look at that as I still can't figure out how did I manage that one. I was a little boy from upstate New York, and we went over my music at the time, and so I had a lot of record collections, everything, like I say, from Teen Idols, from Dion and the Belmonts to John Cage, and I always kept that,
That is kind of like what your music is like, right? It's like...
Well, I also went to I saw the Beatles when I was 11 years old.
Wow.
At Shea Stadium, that was the big concert. And so that had a big, probably, motivation on me also. Like I say, all the Wilsons in my family, we had to take instruments starting in elementary school. So I started on cello and bass, and all through my school years I got it. But yeah, I was an avid record collector actually, and I go back to, I don't know if anybody remembers a band called The Fugs, F-U-G-S. So, and I had a chance to see them in 1966, I guess, when I was 13 years old. So, I went on and tried to continue with it. And I guess that's why I keep going, something motivates me, I kind of reached my dream with
Yeah, we just love that your music found an audience,
Yeah.
and that's what places like Other Music are all about. Pop Overbite Records across the street is an amazing store. There's so many great record stores in LA right now. I think when we made this film 10 years ago, it was a very transitional period for music. Streaming was sort of just taking off, and vinyl was not, it was getting popular, but not like it is now. But I think our motivation making the film was a lot about how this specific kind of store that would introduce people to music was kind of becoming a thing of the past. Because now, I'd be interested to hear what our friend from Pop Overbite would say about this, but it seems like a store like yours has the ability to expose people to music, but you're not going to be selling like 30 copies of something in a day. It's like maybe you've got a title that you guys champion and you have to restock it, but it's not like, as much as people buy physical media and enjoy it, it's not the primary way that people consume music.
Yes.
Right? Which is Other Music was very much like, it's like a radio station or something breaking artists.
So I had a guy come in. He's like, "What are you guys selling here?" And then we're like, "Oh, we're selling, music." And he's like, "Have you looked out your window?"
There was a giant Tower Records literally across the street, so you could buy anything that a major label had to offer at Tower Records across the street.
Have you seen the Tower documentary? Records documentary? Yeah.
My favorite part of it was the ending where they visit the Japanese.
Yeah, that's the only store left in Japan, right?
Yeah.
Well, and also the beginning is really fun when you're getting to know everybody, you know?
And Axel and Slash.
Well, the thing is, that tower on 4th Street, that was the only one in the city that made money, apparently. The other ones lost money.
Yeah.
And it was a great store and like genius location for Other Music to put themselves there.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to Chris when Tower went out of business. I'm like, how do you feel? And he's like, well, it's a sad day.
And it hurt them that Tower closed.
It did.
Well, I think that's the other thing is that young people shifted more into Brooklyn, that the foot traffic down there, and when then Tower went, then Tower Video shut down, and Tower. So they had like a whole block. They had Tower, the Tower Annex. They had multiple floors. It was a huge thing.
And that whole area in the East Village had so many record stores. So you could do your whole day just walking from one to the next, and
you still can to some extent.
Yes, that's true.
It's not like it was. There's just less. There's still good ones.
Yeah. There's just more like weird Instagram cafes kind of places in between.
Well, Brooklyn is not walkable in that way that Manhattan is. That you could spend a morning just walking West Village, East Village, and just go to 20 record stores.
Got a sublease on this place on East 4th Street, and painted the floor, put some racks up, and just started buying records, and it took off very quickly for us.
Do you remember your first finding out about the store? Was it?
I don't remember when I first found out about it, but
it was just kind of.
I guess I used to go to Kim's. So I knew Josh from when he used to play drums in Antietam.
Yeah, still does.
Yes, he still does.
They have a new record coming out.
Yes, and he's landed on his feet. He works at Secretly Distribution.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
We saw Josh and you at the
same thing.
crazy Grammy party. Only
I haven't seen
Grammy
it for a
party I've
while.
ever been invited to in my life.
So what years were you at the store?
I worked there. I started in 2002.
Okay.
We had Gary Wilson here earlier, who you see in the movie. I think he had just done his in-store like a couple weeks before I started. So I was there 2002 to 2005 while I was an NYU film student and not showing up for class because I was just like working at the store, going to parties every night at APT.
Yeah.
And free concert tickets for anything. It was the best job you could possibly imagine.
I remember the newsletter as well that they wrote, which was great, because you just whatever you found people you trust to write reviews.
We launched the mail order website in 1998, and the store's newsletter has been going out since 2000.
We had an email newsletter that reached a lot of people. Tens of thousands of people read it every week.
The store was so specific about what it carried.
Yeah.
They're never going to be trying to sell you something bad. It's always something that they
or
genuinely
something they
like.
didn't like.
Yeah. I think now Monorail Records in Glasgow, Stephen Pastel's shop. That's kind of the closest thing I can think of to other music. And that, it's just a little small shop, but they've actually become incredibly important.
Yeah, they're legendary.
Yeah, and just people trust their opinions, and it's also it's a place in Glasgow to hang out.
Yeah, I was thinking about this before. Other music would have been 30 years old this year.
Right.
It's also the 30th anniversary now of Belle and Sebastian's first two albums.
Yeah,
which were huge.
Their biggest sellers, right?
Right, their biggest sellers because I think they were the first store in the United States that had their Scottish import CDs. So the people that read the NME or whatever were coming to other music to buy it, but also just like NYU students and stuff were hearing from the store and other people like, check out this new band. So glad that Vidiots wanted to screen the film. We have been asking them every record store day for about 5 years. And last year we went to see a movie.
Michael Clayton. Yeah.
With the director Q&A. It was amazing. They showed a film print. And afterwards, Amanda, who's the programmer here, spoke really eloquently about how they see this place as a community center and a place for people to come together and appreciate art and curate screenings, and the video store is a really great way to I think it's a subscription model where you pay for a year, you come anytime, rent whatever you want. So we just love, we felt like there's a kinship between what Vidiots is doing and what other music did.
Yeah, we were like, after Amanda spoke, we were like, we need to write to them again and ask them once more because, what she said was like the thesis of our movie. So.
It wasn't just a record store, it was definitely like a community center in a lot of ways.
It's one of those things where it transcends a job. These people become your family.
Anybody in the audience have a question?
You took a lot of notes.
I did. Well, I did. I was watching it yesterday.
I also went to other music a lot. I miss it very much. But I also remember that time period of New York. And so my question was, the Brooklyn scene was up and coming. Did they ever talk about moving? Like, what was that? Was there ever talk of okay, that part of Manhattan sucks now? Did they not think about, let's go somewhere else? Or was it just too much?
No, it did come up. A lot of people were like, maybe you should move. Maybe that'll solve the problem. But they realized that it wasn't going to be sustainable even if they moved because they always featured, they always focused on new music, and most record stores make most of their money from used records, so the whole model of their store was outdated, basically. And they realized that if they moved, they'd just be putting a Band-Aid on something that, would end soon after anyway.
And I think it just, more so, they probably could have had a store that continued to exist, but it just would have had a different mission statement.
Yeah.
And I think of the two owners, Josh and Chris, Josh really wanted to just make sure they stayed true to what the store was and what it represented for that era, rather than having an even smaller store that was more heavily used and maybe limited. If you go into a record store, generally now they'll have a couple copies of whatever new release vinyl stuff. They don't carry. Other music would have like 60 copies of the new album by whatever new band at any time. So they couldn't just keep being influential like that, and it was never going to continue to be a place where people came in and discovered music in the same way. So they just wanted to kind of end things
before things got really watered down.
Yeah, and I think when they ended in 2016 was a particularly rough time for record stores. So now it's a bit easier, but it's just like I said. I think record stores fulfill a different function now. Like most people, even if you buy vinyl, you're listening to music on your phone as well.
Yeah.
Maybe more than the vinyl, even if you love vinyl, because it's more convenient and you're in your car and you can listen to anything you want. So it's just
Obviously, Rough Trade opened a big shop in Brooklyn, but it's now they've closed it. Now they're in Rockefeller Center. I don't think it works there in the same way because again, you don't have the foot traffic. I guess where they were was next to Music Hall of Williamsburg,
which is gone now.
That's gone.
That's about to close down as well.
Yeah,
yes.
that's gonna go. I mean, yeah, it's and now they're in this like, it's very commercial. It's very like Times Square-ish feeling, and it's more about the merch. Like our niece who lives in Barcelona went to New York this last summer, and she wanted to go there just to look at like the merch and stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what happened to HMV and to all the mega stores. You walked in, like it's just they were selling more T-shirts and anything else, right? Or knickknacks, or all kinds of stuff.
The year 2000 was our highest grossing year, and 2001 was on course to be bigger than that. So we were coming in September, and it was a Tuesday.
But I mean, they could talk about 9/11 in the movie because, but I guess the other thing that's happening then, well, is Napster, obviously, and that's the other the crushing thing that all of a sudden you start seeing just sales just dropping precipitously.
Yeah, and I think I think we've heard from some of these artists and from other music that Napster in some ways actually helped them because, Napster was at its height when I was working at the store in 2002. And we were selling things like Interpol hand over fist that were like also blowing up in Napster at the same time.
Oh, really? That's
so I think that kind of like coincided to some degree with the like this thing of like indie music and major label music being equivalent, which Spotify has, done tenfold with, you go to Coachella and it's like Sabrina Carpenter is next to somebody that might be on Matador or something. It's like everything is the same.
Yeah.
We had all sorts of people coming to us saying like, hey kids, like people are gonna try to get you to sign a record deal, like don't be a moron. But the other music, that actually was kind of the one deal that made sense to us because they were kind of forward thinking and launching an independent digital distribution platform.
So I wonder if you guys or if anybody has any questions, we're happy to take from the audience. Anybody wondering anything about the making of the film or what?
I just want to what Dan brought up really quick was just like the fact because I grew up in Pasadena when I was like a teenager, and I don't really have a question, but more just saying that like that was when I was like 15. That's when I found Gary Wilson's record at Puba Records. And then, so it's like I've never been to other music, but I was like that record changed my life. But I did find it at Puba, so that was a cool shout out.
What a coincidence.
Yeah.
Nice.
What was the question?
No question. It's like, I never heard someone talk about Puba before, so I was like, wow.
Statement.
Yeah.
And Dan worked there. I didn't know that.
Yeah, worked there like right after my last year of high school into like a couple of years there with all the guys. One of the cats named Rick, he used to play with now help me out with this because I've been forgetting names lately, but it was a group that was a part of Frank Zappa's band, but they turned into Captain Beefheart. So he's the guy named Rick. He used to work there, but he also played with Captain Beefheart. So And then when I was there, certain cats like turned me on to like, you know, when they were talking about in other music, the documentary just now that we watched, how cats would play certain music and certain records. It was their time to share their selections. That's how it used to be at Pooh-Bah. So we would have times like I'll play something or another employee will play something. And I remember this cat named David, he put on Pete Fab Sprout's first album. And I was just blown away. That was called Swoon.
Yeah.
And
I know from your Instagram you're a big Free
Oh,
Sprout fan.
yeah. So
well, you know, I met Captain Beefheart.
Did you?
When I was
that makes
in
sense.
high school. And it was around 1969, 1970. And I got to see him at a small venue, and I ended up giving him a cassette demo of my music.
Okay.
And you know, it was real wild. You know, like I say, I was 1969, 1970, so I was, you know, I got to see him real close.
That's amazing.
With the original guys that played on Trout Mass Replica.
Yes.
And you
that's the
know,
one.
I was up real close. And
cool.
my saxophone player, Frank Roma.
Frank.
Back then you only had to be 18 to go into a bar. So I borrowed my brother's ID. I was still like 16 or something. And so I got to meet him, and he was having problems with his saxophone. His reed had cracked or something on his horn. And Frank Roma, who was my saxophone player, he always carried extra reeds with him. So, you know, Beefheart came in with his manager before the show, so there was nobody there when we were there in the early time. And so next thing, Frank Roma lets Beefheart borrow one of his reeds. So they're on the table attaching Frank's reed to his saxophone. But that was a real privilege seeing him with the original guys up front. You know, I always think about that.
Imagine.
Some of the people I met on my way, you know, that, you know, I had been searching who is Gary Wilson. You know, and I've been to, you know, very extreme avant-garde stuff. Plus I was in a rock band, you know, and called Lord Fuzz at the time. And so, you know, everything kind of develops to who you are, you know, and always, you know, I tell young people, well, you got to stick with it, you know, because you got to find your personality in the music, and that takes time, you know, because in the early days, you're inspired by somebody or some artist, so you tend to want to sound like them. But, you know, you finally, when I reached in 1977, well, there's a whole story. I mean, I was invited to Woodstock by a singer-songwriter named Robbie Dupree, who had a bunch of hits in the 70s. So he took an interest in me in 1975, let's say, and brought me to Woodstock, and we recorded at Bearsville Studios. They're beautiful studio, like built by Janis Joplin and Bob Dylan's manager at the time, and so state of the art. I remember they had $100,000 grand piano there that was just beautiful. And so, like I say, it takes a bit of time. You know, I had previously put out 2 records before You Think You Really Know Me, kind of a jazz fusion album called Another Galaxie, and then a disco. A lot of the jazz people were putting out disco records kind of in the 70s. So I kind of put out a single, and that's a good story because I'm watching the Golden Globe show with Marilyn Streep hosting it, and Questlove was DJing the show. And all of a sudden I heard my 1975 record come on.
That's
incredible.
Wow. Nice.
But it still took to 77 where I finally could put a stamp on my records and say, this is Gary Wilson.
Yes.
store that started selling the record, Other Music, they're the only people that really have this record yet, and they already sold out.
Oh, great.
We have to go over there and bring them more records. They ordered 120.
It kind of led up to like this reissue of like the You Think You Really Know Me record, and then he kind of came out of nowhere, found a band, and like just destroyed everybody.
I wanted to ask a question about what are Josh and Chris doing now?
Well, like we said, Josh is he's at the secretly Canadian group label, but he works for the distribution arm specifically.
And his specialty basically is he gets record labels to sign up for their distribution arm. So.
And Chris is working at Trader Joe's, and he didn't want to not do retail. So, the music business, basically, he was just like, he would have loved to just go to another record store, but there wasn't going to be anything that paid him well enough, So now he's at Trader Joe's, and it's kind of funny. He'll tell us some guy came into Trader Joe's and was like, wait, were you one of the owners of Other Music?
Yeah, especially after the movie came out.
Yeah.
He was a little annoyed about it, I think. He was a little embarrassed. He was like, yeah, I'm at Trader Joe's. But in the immediate after, when he first started working at Trader Joe's, some of the real hardcore Other Music weirdo regulars started coming in to talk to him at Trader Joe's, and he would get in trouble with his boss.
Yeah.
Un jour tu me briseras le cœur en souriant, en souriant.
Why did the third owner, I forget his name, not partake in this? He seemed like an interesting guy.
We couldn't even find out where he was for sure.
We know he's in Belgium, and we actually did find we found that he was the coach for a Little League, and we wrote to the Little League team being like, will you please tell Jeff we're trying to find him? But they never wrote back to us, and
he just didn't. He just
he's also not he's not in touch with Josh or Chris or
anybody,
any of them. So
I think he just walked away and was he was part of the founding of it, but I think what we've heard from Josh and Chris is that he was, Josh and Chris were into underground music, but they weren't obscurists. They were totally fine with celebrating some indie band with catchy, love songs. But Jeff was like, I want to sell 1 million Merzbow CDs and would buy way too many of them.
Oh,
and the back room would be full of these unsellable things. So Other Music always had, that's probably the only place you could probably get every Jandak CD or whatever.
Yes.
But they would have one of each at a time and then reorder it as needed.
I would argue with him sometimes because I'm like, why don't you have the new Rolling Stones record? Because I'm like, you're stalking the Neil Young. You're like, he's okay, but then anyway, that's my personal beef. He knows what he could sell.
They got to make decisions. They always said Tower's right across the street.
Oh yes, until it wasn't.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
until it wasn't. Yeah. But then
they started carrying stuff like that. We were surprised. They had Beatles and Radiohead and
yeah, they had things at the end that I was like, we never would have carried this, back in my day.
Yeah.
I was rewatching this film. You Think You Really Know Me, the Gary Wilson story. There's some great stories about the way that people used to share things pre-internet. True word of mouth. I think there's a guy named Ross who we know and we worked with, a filmmaker, photographer.
Ross.
Yeah,
he's talking about how he personally told Beck about your music, and it was just check out this guy Gary. I think they were doing a photo session, and Ross was like, I put Gary Wilson on, and Beck was like, what is this? This is great. And then Beck became a huge fan and supporter and referenced you in his lyrics on Mutations album, maybe, or
that was Odelay.
Odelay.
Yeah.
Passing the Gucci from coast to coast like a man, Gary Wilson.
Well, it's funny because around 1977, you know, that was winning Grammys and with Beck and all that.
Yeah.
And he was playing a couple of my cuts off the album.
Yeah.
But it still took till 2002 where I had a resurrection. Like I say, when they re-released the album and we did the show at Other Music. So it took time. You never know the timing, you know, from 1977 to, you know, later on in the years, you know, it finally, you know, I had people that hated me. I mean, you know, there was a lot of bands that didn't like us. And, you know, we were the bad boys, I guess.
People were not ready for it, you know.
Yeah.
Truly ahead of your time.
Oh,
Yes.
I always thank the Lord for, you know, it all turned around.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
I really feel for musicians trying to get started nowadays. It's so much easier to get lost in the crowd, whereas something about knowing that there are people at a record store kind of like there to like stand behind certain groups and talk to people about them that they really like and get people to get things, it's different. And now it's also strange because it's like robots are telling you what you'd like.
We're really interested in like how people discover music now with, I mean, obviously Spotify and stuff, but I wonder, like, Dame, like, where do you go to discover stuff nowadays?
I go to my record collection still. So from, well, fortunately, with which I was grateful to be able to travel the world, to go to different record stores and, you know, bring back some of these records. Even before I started the recording career and traveling, I was always collecting records, which goes back to me mentioning Pooh Bah's earlier. But I just go into my own collection. Some stuff I wouldn't listen to all the way, but most of it I would, and then I would just kind of hope and pray that some of that stuff is released on digital again. You know what I'm saying? Because see, this is the thing. A lot of people don't realize that Gary got lucky, well, blessed, but there's a lot of material out there that's still not streaming, that people just are missing out on. You know what I mean? And that's like what other music had, like the records that you can, you know, actually physically touch.
Couldn't buy them from anywhere else.
There you go. And so, but not to, I definitely don't want to be a pessimist. You know, there's a good and a bad. I'm a Gemini, so I see both sides. So digitally, you know, a lot of people wouldn't be able to hear Gary's music if it wasn't digital world right now. You know what I'm saying? So we have to kind of like, you know, embrace and at least, we don't have to embrace, but at least respect both sides, physical and digital, and whoever that person is responsible for putting out a reissue or finding something that hasn't been issued yet and putting it on digital, that's a blessing as well. So I think the next phase is if the spirit of other music and these other record stores we've mentioned can embrace finding those artists and those releases and getting them out again digitally or doing physicals again. And even when they mentioned in the music documentary about the CDs, CDs are great to me. I don't know why people frown or act weird about CDs. It's like I love CDs too. Vinyl's great. I love vinyl. Let's always be our passion, but you know the way it sounds, you drop that needle. But CDs are great. I'm gonna put out some stuff on CD again. I mean, it's like the easy. A lot of people like to get CDs and put it in their cars. Some people still have cars with CD players in it.
I was at a record store in Arizona a month ago, and the guy there was saying all these 16-year-olds are buying CDs because they're getting their parents' used cars that have CD players in them. That's how they want to listen to music.
Well, the fidelity, the lack of noise, rumble, and so forth. So you know, with CDs, you know, you got excellent fidelity usually, you know, without any infringements of, you know, noises. But you know, I like both.
I like both.
And so,
But the pamphlets are great too. That you can have 10 pages.
yeah, exactly. The vinyl the cover sometimes was important on a record. You know, where you had a nice big cover. You know, with photos and. But yeah.
That's been really cool, actually, since, let's say, like the birth of streaming and MP3s and all that, is the rise of vinyl. And watching younger people now build their collections and come in and be like, oh, I just got a vinyl player, as they say, vinyl player. I want some records.
It was really interesting to us when we were filming in the store, right?
Yeah.
Because I had worked at this store in 2002.
Okay.
And coming back in 2016 and seeing young people coming into the store.
And they like knew, they knew stuff that we didn't know when we were kids because we didn't have access to the internet in the same way. So there would be like a 14-year-old kid who came in and he knew every Can album, and
he had an opinion on everyone.
And
I'm like, when we were young, we had to like pick one.
Yeah,
see,
it's like you only have so much money. You have to buy the one. I don't know how you choose it. Like the cover looks good or whatever. But yeah, it's just different now. And we wanted to like, when we made the movie, we didn't want it to be like, oh, everything used to be great and now it all sucks. Because we don't think that. Like, even now when we're discovering artists, we listen to it on streaming first, and then if we really love something, we go out and get the record, But I don't know. It's all
Great
good.
job making the movie.
It's all good.
Yeah, it's all good.
You did a great job. If I may humbly interject, it's like it's so funny you said that because these days we could be very pessimistic and we could have gotten up here and started it's not the same as it used to be. And it's like we have to start kind of seeing that what if we kind of take this energy that we have like in this room and take it out of here and make it where it makes sense for all of us and the new people who are around or whoever, even people who are existing now, to just like, let's get back into like some physical items, curation. Be open to people curating to you instead of you just only doing your own aux, be open to curation again so that you can get Dwayne Harriet bigging up Gary Wilson's album or anything else out there that, somebody might, have a hunch on like, oh, you think you might want to check this album out, just be open listening to his stuff. Was he recommended? No, just be more open to the recommendations like I was at Poobah when David put on Prefab Sprout Swoon or Two Wheels Good. I was like, what is this? Patty McAloon is like this writer who's not being paid attention to only in the UK. He just like writing these incredible songs and it's kind of like produced by Thomas Dolby, but also like folky funk pop. It's like, and that's the kind of stuff that I'm really open to, and that's another reason why I was into Gary as well. Is like he had the funk element. He had, I don't know where you got it from, but you had it, and you had the pop. He had the rock and new wave, everything. I've pretty much collected everything that you've had, and it's just a pleasure to be sitting up here with you on the same stage.
Over time, like they knew what was in your record collection, they knew what excited you, you knew what excited them. So the conversations just like went to deeper and deeper levels.
People love stories. People love a good story. That's one thing I learned from Dwayne Harriet. If people love the story, they would buy it.
When I started doing tours, when I'm watching Dwayne on the screen, I'm like, that's my dude, because like when you start coming up in the game, like as Gary's talking about earlier, like coming up and then start learning things later. I didn't know about getting a hotel, on my own and chilling in the jacuzzi before the show. I had to stay with Dwayne, you know what I'm saying, in New York. So I stayed at his spot, at his apartment, and did my gig, and then eventually I started knowing, oh, my rider, my green room, all that stuff, and you get to tell the promoter to get your own spot, and don't have to stay in somebody's apartment. So, but Dwayne, when we and him would hook up, we would talk about these things like Gary Wilson's music, Larry Heard, Mr. Fingers, those kind of cats, just discussing music. And I miss those days how we're so secluded now and reclusive, because this has enabled us to stay inside and just, oh God, paradise. Okay. I don't have to talk to anybody. Oh God, I don't have to see anybody. Introvert. Okay, yeah, I'm embracing my introvertism. So, but now I realize, even though it's fun to have this in the pocket, you know, to be sitting here on stage and talking to real people about music is what this documentary was trying to convey. And I appreciate both of you for making this movie, because again, today, this is my first time seeing it. And, you know, between us, you know, when we were talking, we were trying to link up this whole thing to come together and do it. And at first I was like, you know, it's like, is there any kind of like, you know, compensation for this? I'm like, nah, you know what? Let's just relax. And that's what I'm trying to say, that the game has made us like that. Instead of just relax, just come to the spot and talk and just connect with people again. It doesn't have to be a big paycheck or have to be an agenda. It's about reconnecting with cats like Gary, both of yourselves making a great movie like this at Vidiots, a community-based experiment that's been around here for 20-something years. It's like, let's just do more of this. It awakened me to go more art. I'm going back, y'all. So that's what I have to say. So,
Yay.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
When you know, you get into all different kinds of music, and I appreciate a lot of it. I mean, when I turned 18 and graduated from high school, I got in a band with the piano player. He retired in upstate, but he was with Frank Sinatra and Peggy Lee and all these people. So I was fortunate to play early on with him bass.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I got out to San Diego, I ended up, I don't know who's familiar with blues people like Roy Brown, Percy Mayfield. I ended up playing bass with the Coasters. And like I say, Roy Brown, Good Rockin' Tonight. I mean, that was a real lesson, you know, and these guys were the real thing. I mean, you know, Roy Brown, Good Rockin' Tonight, that was a big hit for him in 1949. And then Percy Mayfield, he wrote Hit the Road Jack. He was with Ray Charles.
Of course.
So I ended up playing bass with him in 1980 and stuff. But, you know, you go through a lot of music. So, you know, I appreciate a lot of different styles and, you know, so, you know, it all kind of comes together one way or another, right? So
I love your sound. I love the chords that you implement. You're not afraid to have beautiful chords inside of your grooves and your songwriting, and also it feels very personal. And but it could be about other people too, I'm sure. But I love the fact that you make it feel like it's personal. And again, we're big followers of your music, man. And it's like, thank you for all the great music. Let's give them a round of applause.
A place like Other Music is only about the community and about the people who shop there and about the family. It's not about buying and selling, it's about being a part of something. And oh, Chris came out.
The other thing that I loved about the store was it was the 90s. I don't know, I got pretty tired of like American rock bands in the 90s. And just the whole decadence section that you talk about, it's just like I just put so much Japanese and German and Brazilian. They kind of made it apparent that there was a whole other world out there of people making music that's not just indie rock bands.
Yeah, and they've celebrated world music in a kind of
exotifying
ethnomusicology way,
yeah,
where it's like we'll just put out like tribal music or whatever.
The only snobbery I ever saw was when this guy came in who was very drunk and asked Chris Vanderloo if they had Stevie Ray Vaughan, and he said, "Sorry, man, we don't have that here." And the guy stumbled out and muttered something like they were assholes.
There was this moment in the, that we filmed that's not in the movie, where one of the people working at the store put on a Led Zeppelin record, and I think Stairway to Heaven was on in the store, and like Josh was just like, I know that things have changed for this store, but like this is not okay. He flipped out. Like he was like, so we were gonna put that in the movie, but it didn't make it.
You couldn't get the rights?
Well, hey, with fair use nowadays,
I think
we didn't pay for Belle and Sebastian in this movie, but it's only like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a part in the movie where they put the on a whiteboard like the top 100 best-selling albums from the store of all time. Is there a way to access that list?
Yeah, it's online. You can
Okay.
just sort of Google it, and I think we maybe even made like a Spotify and Apple Music playlist with one song from each album.
Cool, thanks.
I think. Yeah.
Do you? I'm curious from Dean's perspective as a live musician too.
Yeah.
Are you feeling like, even just anecdotally, the pendulum might be swinging back to that more in person? Like maybe Gen Z is just sort of over the stimulus of nonstop TikToks and stuff. And like even our kid is 18 and we go to shows and she is just engrossed.
Yeah.
She's screaming every lyric. But she's got a lot of music discovery online that transfers to that live show.
Well, I guess shows are the one things they can't take away from you. They
Yeah.
can't steal off you, right?
So it's hopeful.
Yeah. I mean, there's good and bad in the streaming model. There really is. I think it does. That does enable people to discover music, as discussed in the film.
Well, and you've experienced it, right?
It's easy to reach people. It's just hard to sell them something.
Yeah. But I mean,
they
think
don't
about
value it as something you have
Yes,
to pay for.
they just have not.
Right.
They're
It's in the air.
who makes that point? They'll say they just never grew up with it. I think is it Tunde makes that point.
Yeah, maybe.
They
Too long.
They never grew up buying.
Yeah, they didn't.
But I was going to ask about your experience of that too, with like, I mean, the popularity of like "Strange," for example, on Spotify is like, it's a massive song.
Mhm.
It's a mainstream song in a way that it never was when it came out.
So I do think so. And if it were not for streaming, I'm not sure that would be true. It's hard to tell, I guess.
The access that kids have, even back when we were filming in 2016, we were noticing, a kid would come up with like a Can record and they would be like, well, I know this is my favorite one. This
And
is the
they'd
best one.
listen to all of them online, which I was like, when I was 14, I didn't know all these records, like.
Or even when I was in 2002, when I was working at Other Music, to hear every Can CD, I had access. I could like borrow them from the store.
Yeah.
But like, you'd have to have a lot of money to like buy every Can album and check it out and decide which one was the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when music it's ubiquitous and it's omnipresent and it's all around us, but
it takes the value of it away monetarily.
It's as important as if you're having to conduct a search yourself and discover things. That's the world we live in.
Yeah. Well, I know they were asking us to wrap up because this is turning into RZA's green room for the Iron Fist. We're going to be in the video store for a minute afterward if anybody wants to continue the conversation. We have some free postcards if anybody wants. If you like the movie, you can tell your friends they can watch it for free on Tubi. Also in the back we have a few t-shirts left for sale if anybody's interested. Thank you for being here, everybody.